Hi, I'm Wild Bill. It's the 14th of April, 2023, and I'm having a boomer moment. Strangest thing happened. Lately, I've been recalling an episode from a 1960s or early 70s television show about an underwater satellite. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound right to me either. However, I remember this pretty clearly. It was a show. I thought it was a Sea Hunt episode, but I've looked through the Sea Hunt playlist and I've never seen it mentioned anything about it. You'd think that would be right up there in the description. So no Sea Hunt episode about Mike Nelson going underwater to intercept an underwater satellite, but I remember fairly clearly the idea that there was something underwater that was traveling at supersonic speeds on a regular pattern, and they figured out it was an underwater satellite. 1960 science fiction. The reason I'm interested, and I'd like to find that episode of that show, whatever it was, if it existed, because it is the beginning of what today is a real technological challenge. They're building what they call supercavitating engines and ships and torpedoes. Supercavitation happens when you spin the propeller that drives the boat way too fast and bubbles form. That's called cavitation. Bubbles are cavities. This saps energy from the system so that you spin the propeller a lot without getting much drive. And the idea of a supercavitating torpedo comes with the basic concept of a vehicle traveling through not the water, but a bubble of steam. And so the Russian Squall torpedo, Squall, creates a bubble of steam from its nose that goes back along the body of the torpedo, and at the back of the torpedo is a rocket motor. Like the rocket motors that drive ballistic missiles from submarines and into enemy airspace and hunt enemy continental targets. The Squall torpedo can move apparently at or around 200 miles an hour underwater, traveling in this cavitating bubble of steam. Now, it's very difficult to do some things in that. One thing is, as long as you're in that bubble of steam, you're relatively frictionless compared to the water around you. However, how are you going to steer? How do you keep the rocket from just falling down through a bubble of steam until it implodes? Well, the rocket has positive propulsion and it has fins, like a missile has, right, for changing direction. And those fins just stick a little bit into the water stream outside the bubble, just a little bit. Just like the V-2 missile had carbon vanes that would swing in to direct the missile by affecting the thrust flow from the rocket motor. Create an imbalance to the left, and the rocket goes to the left. Create an imbalance to the right. The rocket goes to the right. This is well known. Here at the Squall torpedo, you're doing it the opposite. You're extending the fins into the external medium, not the bubble you're traveling in, but the water itself. And that allows you to steer and to stay balanced in terms of up and down and side to side, right? Elevation and azimuth as you head toward your target. Now, the big problems are evident almost immediately. One is, how are you going to detect your enemy while you're moving at 200 miles an hour through very turbulent water inside a bubble of steam, which is all catastrophic for sensors. You're not. So that Squall torpedo isn't going to be tracking an enemy ship. It's going to be headed in a straight line like a bullet. And the only things that will knock it off course will be eddies in the water, ramming a sea mammal or a mount, or hitting an enemy target. The advantages are several. The disadvantages are major. It can't track, so it can't be targeted beyond initially pointing it in the direction you hope your target will be when it reaches it. And that's very inexact. It is the model that we used to sink enemy shipping in World Wars One and Two, though. You're using computer to predict where the enemy will be, and you fire the torpedo straight along that course, and the enemy comes up to it, well, yeah, bang. So the Squall torpedo can be used at least as well as a World War One or World War Two torpedo could be used against merchant shipping. For warships, how close is your submarine going to get? The Squall can travel at 200 miles an hour, but it by no means has a 200-mile radius. It's going to travel, I don't know, 5,000 meters, whatever a torpedo usually travels. It's going to be doing it extremely fast, but it has to get fairly close to the target to do so. And that's improvement for travel time, accuracy, and it gives the enemy ship, the target, less chance to maneuver away. However, it does pretty much tell everybody in a 200 or 300-mile radius exactly where the firing submarine is. The submarine just launched a rocket underwater. Every hydrophone, every sonar is going to say, like, whoa, there it is. Immediately, you're going to know. Fish finder. What the hell? So there are advantages and disadvantages. My interest in it lies in the idea that though we are working on hardware versions of this now, back in the 60s it seemed like some science fiction writer had come up with the concept early because he had an underwater satellite traveling faster than the speed of sound through the water, supercavitating. That's pretty advanced for back then, don't you think? I sure do. If anyone remembers that episode or the show from which that episode derives, I would sure like to know, because it's starting a process that has led to the Squall torpedo of 20 years ago, which is still a clear and present threat, especially in the Black Sea where there isn't much room to maneuver. And also today's efforts to develop both supercavitating torpedoes and supercavitating ships. There are people that think that you can build a submarine like that. As I said, there are disadvantages, and one that I didn't mention with the Squall, the supercavitating torpedo, is the vibration. The vibrations that you would be subject to inside a submarine traveling like that would kill you. So there's a problem. This is Wild Bill talking about something that no one else may remember. That's strange. I mean, I think I'm special, but I don't know if I'm that special.